Hello, my friends. It is October the 16th. This is End Times Analysis. I'm Pastor Jeff. Welcome to the hovel. Get a cup of coffee, take a seat, and let us reason together. We are looking at a very timely passage today, or really a psalm today. Psalm 83. We've gone over 1 through 5, get started on 6. We're going to go from 6 to see where we end up. Psalm 83 is so prevalent because right now, with the Hamas Israel war going on, Israel did declare a state of war against Hamas. They're even considering ground operations. So let's start. The nations were more or less related to Israel. We're going to go back a little bit where we ended off. That's always a good thing to do. The psalm speaks of Moab, which was a child of Lot, which came down from the Iraq area, Haran, with Abraham. The Haggaites, which was a Haggai, which was a concubine of Egypt, but the Haggaites were descendants of Haggai who dwelt east of Gilead, east of the Jordan River. First Chronicles 5, 10, 19, and 20. The psalmist speaks of the tents of Edom. That was Israel's brother. The Edomites were Israel's brother, and the Ishmaelites, half brother of Joseph. No, not Joseph. Half brother of Isaac, who was once again the child of Haggai, but they had the same father, the father of Abraham. He speaks of Gebal. Now, Gebal could be the Phoenician city of Babylos. This was a renowned in ancient times as a place of industry, uh, building, and their paper. They, I think, believe they had a paper industry, and also they built boats. Ammon, once again, a child of Lot, who came down with Abraham. Came down with Abraham. All of these were coming down. Now, also, we get the Amalekites. Amalekites were one of the most hated, dreaded enemies of Israel. King Saul was supposed to wipe them out, the Amalekites. He did not, and that cost him his kingdom. Then you get on to the Philistines. Cannot forget the Philistines. That is right now what we're seeing is going on in Gaza. That is considered the ancient area of the Philistines. Then we got the far flung empire of the Assyrians. Assur is looking down. This is like one of the ones that we call an outer ring thing, and we're actually seeing this now with the Shia militia up in Iraq that are threatening Israel. But this is what I want us to get. I want in Psalm what I talked about is in Ezekiel 38. I talked about the Gog paradigm. But I also want to talk about the neoconservative and the neoliberal paradigm. How could the UN, how could the Western Alliance, how could all of these areas just sit back and let this happen? It is very, very disconcerting to believe Ukraine and Russia get into a war. The West automatically steps in. Israel, in a crucial location, shipping up natural gas to Egypt, shipping up maybe natural gas later on. They were talking about a pipeline between Israel and Europe, but right now Turkey is conflicting uh, waters off with Cyprus off the Mediterranean, so that's kind of iffy right now. But they are shipping natural gas to Egypt. Israel is also a major food producer, and with the Ukraine-Russian war, Israel is stepping more up. They're also finding some rare earth. There's been some reports that there may be some rare earth in Israel, and with China right now talking about having certain restrictions, maybe even sanctions on rare earth to Europe and America. This is a crucial hub, and Israel, of course, is one of the most technologically advanced nations. And with the West in a semiconductor, we're in a semiconductor war with China, and so not to a lesser extent Russia and some others. even to the point of putting sanctions on lithium machines and the 5G technology and other chip technology. We are in a semiconductor at least we could say we're in a semiconductor conflict with the United States pressuring Japan and Korea about limiting their access to China's access to technology. And we're just going to sit back? What paradigm? What has got to happen? Remember, we are not a prophecy show. We are an analysis show. And we have got to look at the facts on the ground right now is what has got to happen for the neoconservatives, the neoliberals, the globalists to sit back and just let this happen. Because let's think about this. What they said was, let us wipe Israel off as a nation so their name is remembered no more. At best, we're looking at ethnic cleansing. At worst, we're looking at complete genocide. And like I said, brooding over all this is the far flung terrorist organizations which are up in Iraq. They call it Assur, which was one of the ancient capitals of Assyria. So as we look at this, we have to look at the children of Lot seem to be the main drivers of this. Now, if you look at these coalitions, even the terrorist coalitions, they have many different sects and many different beliefs, many different things. You have Sunni, you have Wahhabi, you have Shia, you have other groups that are all intermingled in this. And the only thing they pretty much have in common is we want to get Israel. What that has to be a powerful lot of hate. Israel is surrounded by organized, implacable foes. To the northeast, to the south, to the west, to everywhere out, it is surrounded by enemies. If you look at the world map, and you have to see it is there. And if they get support from outside, we don't know what if they're going to be getting any support. But right now, none of these nations are major weapons producers. In order for them to go out and attack another nation, they have to get some support from some major nation outside. Just like even Israel right now, they were talking about ground offensives. One of the reasons they say, now some people say it's weather, some people say they're trying to do some negotiation for hostages. We don't know all of it. But some things say, please excuse me, some things say that it could be ammunition because the West has sent so much ammunition to Ukraine, they don't have enough to give to Israel. Now, Joe Biden has said we do, but Ukraine would have to differ because they've been asking for munitions, they've been asking for weapons, and they have not really been forthcoming. So, what is going on? Someone is telling the truth, someone is not. Either we have enough weapons and we're not sending them to Ukraine, or we don't have enough ammunition, we don't have enough weapons. Now, if Israel cannot get this, which is right now in a conflict with Hamas, Hezbollah has sent over some rockets, but many people say these are just warnings to Israel to say, hey, if you go in, we're coming in. We don't know all the things that's going on. So many things are happening behind the scene. But let's think about this. Is it in Hamas? Is it in Hezbollah, which is in Lebanon, which is a proxy of Iran? Is it in their best interest to see another enemy of Israel get wiped out? No, no, it is not. They need as many things dividing Israel's attention as possible. If Israel will once again take their full force and combine it against Hezbollah, which once again is in Lebanon, during the Hezbollah wars, Israel has come with overwhelming air power, overwhelming firepower. Once again, we're seeing this even against Hamas in Gaza. Yes, Hamas did get a surprise attack. They call it Israel's 9/11. Many people say it was an intelligence failure. Some people say that they were warned. Some people say even Egypt might have warned them. We don't know all the things going on. Did they just not listen? It's hard to believe that a country that's surrounded by enemies, that has had countless terrorist activities in their nation, would just kind of say, I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't see it happening because they know Hamas has been sending rockets. They know that Hamas has threatened many times. They knew about the tunnels that go under and come in. How did they just sit back and let this happen? We don't know, but we just know it did. We can look at the facts. Hamas had tunnels. The Mossad in Israel had ground penetrating radar. They knew they had tunnels. Hamas has been sending rockets. Did Israel think, okay, they're going to send rockets? Before the invasion, Hamas sent about 5,000 rockets into Israel. The Iron Dome, they say it handled most of it. Of course, some of them did get through. You can overwhelm a defensive capabilities. We've seen that in Ukraine with the Patriot missile system and other systems. Russia with a combination of missiles, drones, and other type of rockets, they have been able to overwhelm. We haven't really heard of the Patriot missile system in Ukraine knocking a lot of them down. I'm sure it would be championed if there was. We're not seeing it. Where are these nations getting their weapons? Where are they getting their arms? Do they all of a sudden, is this like so in the future where these nations can start becoming major weapon producers? I'm not talking small arms or even small arms ammunition, but if you're going to go against Israel, you had better be packing a punch. Even all these nations, because even in 1948, a lot of these nations did attack Israel. Israel was able to hold off and beat them all back. So certain governments were all had changed because of the defeat. Nasser took over in Egypt, and I believe the kingdom of Iraq fell, and some of the more of the militants took over there, and then they would later lead on to the Ba'athist Party. What we're seeing right now is nations in turmoil, wars and rumors of wars. If these nations are going to come against Israel, they have got to have a weapon supply, they got to have a food supply, they have got to do that. Could this attack been not necessarily what we think? Israel and Saudi Arabia were very close to normalizing relations. They even say that Saudi Arabia had pulled back on some of the long-standing promises to the Palestinians. We don't know. We do not know what's going on, but this could be a very good reason for all of a sudden this attack. A one area terrorist attack against Israel. They knew they were going to get overwhelmed with firepower. They knew Israel was going to send in the jets. It's happened before. This is not Hamas's first rodeo. Hamas will sit there. Israel will respond with overwhelming firepower. What usually holds it back is the EU, America, others. We're seeing now China and Russia calling for ceasefires and to what restraint is the word. Hamas will send 5,000 rockets, and EU will be yelling, restraint, restraint. Well, now we're seeing America and EU are saying Israel does have the right to defend itself, but they're also talking about Israel being put under normalized war fighting restrictions, must fight this war in a legalized manner, in a world court legalized manner, or Netanyahu or others could be put on the International Criminals Court list, just like Putin. You cannot say Putin cannot do this, but Netanyahu and others can, because if you do, your court will lose all credibility. So Israel is in a very tight place. How do we fight a war in this area against a determined foe who was willing to sacrifice themselves? They also are holding hostages, POWs, prisoner of war. We do not know if Hamas respects the Geneva Convention. I wouldn't think so. But we're seeing is Israel is a beleaguered nation surrounded by hostile states. They are now, you're seeing more of a united power. Iran, the Shia militias in Iraq. We're seeing Hezbollah, Hamas. We're seeing Saudi Arabia. The Arab League of this weekend was up in Russia talking to Putin, President Vladimir Putin of Russia. Russia is not, we would not call that isolated. America keeps saying Russia is isolated. We couldn't isolate Iran. Even President Obama, if you recall, when he was doing the nuclear accord, says you cannot isolate Iran. If we could not isolate Iran, how can we isolate Russia? 11 time zones. Russia is not isolated. We can say it all day long. It's not. Nations will be dealing with it. Nothing else. They need energy and oil, and Russia has that in abundance. Plus, they're coming out. They're finding more and more natural resources in the frozen wastelands of Siberia. So Russia's not isolated. The Arab League, the president of the Arab League went up. The prime minister of Iraq before that went up asking for Russian support. You're seeing more and more of these nations now coalescing around the old Soviet Union, Russia, China, said, is coming in, and not necessarily they are condemning violence on both sides, but they are not necessarily condemning what you might call Hamas's tactics. You, they're kind of, if you listen to them, they're putting both combatants on an even level. They're not saying, okay, Hamas did a surprise attack, Hamas did it. They're talking about the two-state solution. But okay, they say we need the two-state solution, that the Palestinians deserve a state. Does Tibet deserve a state? Do the Uyghurs deserve a state? Does other ethnic groups, do the Kurds deserve a state? We've been hearing this over and over and over again. Turkey is getting very much involved. Would it give Turkey the moral high ground if they would give the Santa Sophia, the great cathedral in Istanbul, former Constantinople, to the Eastern Orthodox, the Greek Orthodox? Would that give them some standing? Hey, look what we did. Now, Israel, is your turn. Would it give more credence if all of a sudden Iran, Iraq, Turkey would give the Kurds a state? Then they could say, "Hey, listen, we gave the Kurds a state. You Israel now should give Palestine." That's what they used to call the moral high ground. In other words, I cannot point my finger at you unless I point my finger at me and correct what I have. That moral high ground is just not there because Turkey has been sending drones, sending attacks against the Kurds. Iran and Iraq have had trouble, have had sent military expeditions in the past against the Kurds. Uh, China's had trouble in Tibet, still has the Dalai Lama under restrictions. They've have re-education camps and many other things against their Muslim minority up in the northwest of China. I wish I could put it to you. I don't like to turn from you, but here's China. The Uyghurs are up in the northwest of it by Kyrgyzstan. Could that be given the moral high ground? Israel is supposed to give up large areas, which puts them in almost indefensible positions. There's a part in Israel that they gave up the full West Bank. It'll be like between, I've heard, between 10 and 20 miles. Some people said 30. Between, let's say, 10 to 30 miles that could easily split northern and southern Israel. We are seeing this over and over. Where is the collective world when this happens? What has got to happen to the West? What has got to happen to the EU? What has got to happen to all these other nations with the neoconservatives, the neoliberals that will just sit back and watch a confederation form and attack? What has got to happen for these nations to get the weapons, to get the firepower to go against Israel? Does Israel have to disarm? A UN resolution? We have seen it in other areas. Is the West or going to is Israel going to get put under an arms embargo, an arms sanctioning? Are these other nations going to find rich, maybe rare earth, maybe more oil, and then start stocking up? We're seeing this more and more and more. What has got to happen for these things to transpire? That's a great place to stop for right now. This is Pastor Jeff. If you liked our discussion, you found it somewhat found it informative, please do the subscribe and hit the like button. But until we meet again, my friends, Maranatha.